It is almost April, and I mean, some of you, the closest of you that probably watch my videos too, already know I really didn't have that successful of a reading month, and I kind of complained about it the whole time. It wasn't successful in the fact that I actually ended up reading the books on my TBR for the month. I had these grand plans of continuing the TBR thing that I was doing, and I think I DNF'd one and read one, but otherwise it was just a month that I was very angry. I'm just very angry and pent up, but at the same time very like listless and directionless feeling. So let's review what I thought I was gonna read this month and what I actually read. For the books that were, let's see, the oldest ones on my Goodreads TBR, I had Dune, the graphic novel. I did read this one, which I'm not terribly surprised by because it was a graphic novel and probably one of the easiest goals to reach. I will say it was just as wordy as I thought it was going to be. It was pretty dense for a graphic novel, but when I was reading either the wrap up or like the intro, it was talking about how it wanted to stay as true as possible to the original, and the original Dune book, which I think this is only like half of, is extremely dense. So I'm like, okay, I get it, it makes sense. But I ended up giving this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I don't think I'm going to continue the series, at least not owning them, so maybe eventually I'll get the second one from the library. I already did unhaul this one though, so that kind of shows you my sentiment around it. There was also Sorrowland by River Solomon and Manhunt by Gretchen Felker Martin on this oldest for my Goodreads TBR. I didn't even try to touch Sorrowland. It just wasn't something that I was gravitating toward this month. So it is staying on my general TBR. I'll talk more about that in the next video I do. Manhunt I also tried to pick up as an audiobook this time, thinking that maybe an audio version of it would be a bit more palatable, but I feel like it was even more confusing and just hard to focus on. And I think I read reviews where it was saying like the first third or maybe the first quarter of the book is really like you're kind of trying to pick up the pieces because it does drop you in this futuristic apocalyptic type scene, and I feel like I was trying to pick up those pieces while also following our characters. Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward, I DNF'd this probably within like 10 minutes of the audiobook. There was a very extreme animal torture slash death scene, and it was very graphic, and I couldn't get past that. Like, even thinking about it now makes me really nauseous. So I did DNF that one, and it is fully off my list. The other one success off of this part of my TBR was Tentacle by Rita Indiana. I finished this and I honestly really loved it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I feel like I didn't expect some of the plot points in this. I mean, obviously you go into a book as blind as I do, you don't really expect a lot of the things that are going to happen, but I feel like it had a lot of things that really cater to me, and I honestly don't remember quite why I didn't want to read it the first time. I think parts of it just came across a little odd because it is like one of those more extreme queer books where it's not afraid to kind of throw these things in your face. The other section of my TBR was the newer books hauled, and I read none of them. I did attempt to start Carmilla and then promptly felt like it was putting me in a reading slump because since it is such an older book, there's a certain type of prose that is like repetitive to like set a scene where it or like overly descriptive of the scene itself, and it felt like I was trudging through that at the beginning of this. And again, I've read like 10 pages, and I felt like it reminded me of the books I didn't enjoy in English class, where it's trying so hard to create a sense of like what's going on in the world, trying to really drop you into this detailed setting that was putting me to sleep. And so I will try again to read this at another point. It literally made me want to like just not read for a long time. And so the other books, Blob, A Love Story by Maggie Sue, Softcore by Brittany Newell, The Black Fantastic, which was a black Afrofuturism story collection, and Chain Gang All-Stars. Chain Gang All-Stars I actually did also start, and I got probably like 20 or 30 pages in, and I was really enjoying this one, but I had kind of like a different thing than what I was having with Carmilla. I get this sense with like video games and books sometimes where I'm enjoying it so much that I'm afraid to continue it because I'm either afraid I'm going to be let down when it's ultimately not as good as I thought it was going to be, or it's going to be so good that I'm going to be upset when I finish it. And so this one is entirely my fault. I am going to obviously continue reading this and all the other books that I have on my TBR. I'm not unhauling any of them aside from Last House on Needless Street. But yeah, this one just wasn't for me this month, and I am excited to read it at some point in the future. And then the one rollover that was from my February TBR, I did start reading, and I'm going to continue reading in the next month. I'll talk about it in my TBR, is Everyone Who Is Gone Is Here. I was reading probably like 10 to 15 pages a day. Long story short, it was available from the library, but it had like a 21-week wait. I waited for like 5 weeks and it never moved. So I don't really know what's going on with Libby, but I read about 36 pages, and it is an extremely dense nonfiction book where I felt like every time I read it, I was learning and becoming more aware of things that are very dark. And I wasn't even like in the present. This is talking about like, at this point, I think it was talking about things that were happening in the 70s and 80s, and it was very upsetting for obvious reasons. It's talking about immigration, it's talking about Central America and immigrants trying to come to America to get away from a plethora of things. And the beginning of the book is talking about violence and political unrest. I'm trying to like have like words that aren't gonna get me flagged here, but it's talking about these really brutal times in the 70s and 80s. So I'm going to carry this one over and continue to read it. It's gonna be very slow, and I'm probably not gonna finish it for like another month. Very unsuccessful month for the TBR plans, but I did read things, so let me dive into those. Again, I was pretty angry and irritated and stressed out in March, and the fact that I wasn't getting to my TBR was also stressing me out. So I did end up reading a lot of things that were more mood reading or easier reading. So I read I guess a bind up. It's 300 pages. I think it was just a combination of some short stories. This was Secrets of Summerland, the complete series by Catherine Moon. This is a Why Choose Romance, I guess reverse harem romance, and it's got some fantasy and a little bit, I think a little bit queer. There's some like male romance stuff happening, but it's about this woman who comes to a small town where she was supposed to have her honeymoon, but her fiance left her, I think might have cheated on her, and she starts meeting all these different men in the town and developing all these different relationships with them, and then she doesn't realize that they all are intending to have this multi-relationship with her. It was very lighthearted. There was some fantasy stuff that I didn't expect going in, and it was very enjoyable. I feel like it was kind of different than the stuff I've read by Catherine Moon, because I'm always reading her like monstery stuff. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And I kind of wish, I read some reviews and I agree with them where it's saying like, I kind of wish she went further. I feel like the world building was there, and then it kind of just abruptly stopped in favor of just like for everyone to have sex. I also read Hex Wives. This was a graphic novel, and it's talking about these women that keep being reincarnated. I believe they're technically witches, but I think they're more than that. They're more like god-like people. There's this group of men, no surprise, throughout time who has kind of come together and is trying to defeat these women, but they continue to come back even if they're killed. I gave this one a 4 to 5 stars. I then ended up reading something that I've been putting off for a really long time because it was a manga series, a BL manga series that I just didn't really care about anymore, but I forgot that I owned it, and it was a quick read. This was Therapy Game Restart Volume 3, so it's actually the 3rd volume in a spin-off secondary series. I don't know why they do this sometimes. They'll have like a full story arc of like 3 to 5 manga, and then they'll be like, surprise, here's a secondary manga, but you will have had to read the first trilogy or whatever it was. You don't need to listen to me rant. If you want, just like scroll ahead. But technically it started with one series, and I'll have this on the screen because I don't remember the names. It started with this one manga, and then Therapy Game was a spin-off of that one manga with different characters that were side characters, and then Therapy Game Restart is the secondary series to that, and I've read them all, whatever. Anyways, I gave this a 4 star. Unlike some BL that I read, it did have a lot of character development, and we're talking about characters who have a lot of emotional damage and are trying to become better versions of themselves while also like having these extremely self-destructive tendencies, and it was enjoyable. I don't know if there's any more in this series. I kind of want to continue reading these characters, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. And then the last thing, I came back to Catherine Moon because I was like, you know, I just really liked this. I really like this author, and there's a lot of books that I haven't read in her backlog, and this one I gave it 5 stars. It was great. It was written, and this is the first in I think like a trilogy. It's called The Library Coven. Oh, there's 4 books. Oh, I'm so excited. This one was about a woman who comes to work as a librarian in a school where there are witches. It's not like she doesn't know that witches exist, but she herself is not a witch. She ends up meeting, it is a Why Choose Romance, and there is like male romance within that. And then there is this kind of like dark entity that comes to like disturb this nice like college community, and I really loved all the characters here. I'm very glad that this one does have more books in the series because I feel like these characters were very well fleshed out in almost 300 pages, and I want to continue to see how this story arc goes. Yeah, that's all I read this month. I'm gonna do a TBR to say what I'm gonna be reading for next month. I had an okay reading month, but I definitely derailed from the TBR, so thank you for sticking around. Yeah, let me know what you guys read in the comments down below, and if you have any books from my March TBR that you wish I would have read so that I could give you my opinions, let me know. Maybe that'll help me sway my TBR. Maybe. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.